Hey everyone, uh, thanks for watching. I know I've got a kind of a diverse mix of different videos on my channel. Most of them automotive related, some about power stations. Hope you found them informative and helpful. This is the first one where you're actually seeing my face on camera. The reason for that is I want my content to be more informative than just making me the star. Because I mean, I don't really have that much at stake in just promoting my personal brand as a content creator or influencer. Bottom line, I just want to inform you guys, share my honest opinion about things, and hopefully you find that useful in making purchase decisions about EVs, power stations, just whatever else, and just my honest, unvarnished opinion about things. So on that note, as I've noted before, I am a Model 3 owner. It's for me, it's been a little over 5 years and a little bit over 70,000 miles that I've had the car. Um, I'm not going to try and be sensationalistic or try to be all clickbaity with provocative titles or teasers. I'm just going to give it to you straight. So yeah, we'll just start out from the top. First question, would I buy another EV or Tesla? Yes. So far, it's been a predominantly positive experience. There have been some minor issues with the car, but nothing catastrophic or that's left me stranded at the side of the road. Your mileage may vary. I've heard the whole gamut of experiences with Teslas, positive, negative, and everywhere in between. So you know, I can't really I can't really speak for everyone. I can only speak for myself. So, um, first off, the purchase experience. Uh, you know, Look, I may tick some people off. I know there's a lot of vested interests, especially like in the franchise dealership business model. Um, I've not predominantly had a positive experience with them. The whole, let me talk to my manager and just kind of, you know, I feel like they try and play the shell and pea game to try to um, sell you extra stuff you don't need or didn't ask for, and kind of confusing finance terms. The process with Tesla was very straightforward. Like I said, mostly online. At the time, as far as I know, this is still the case. I had to arrange my own financing through a credit union. Um, they didn't have a captive in-house finance arm. So I don't know what the current arrangement is, but as far as I know, you still kind of have to arrange your own financing. Um, anyway, that was, at least in my case, a pretty straightforward process. Um, the way it worked is I think I was actually issued, I believe, like a paper check from the credit union that I just took when I took delivery of my car to pick it up, and then the rest just went on a payment plan. Um, I had an orientation from an employee, kind of walked me through the main features. I'd already done a lot of homework on the car, so I kind of knew that kind of the top level kind of operation features and so forth. Um, the other big thing over the course of the ownership experience is for a lot of less major, like hardware related issues. They'll send someone out to your home or workplace to fix things, which is a big convenience factor. I have had to take it in for a couple things. Uh, some of them voluntary, some were not foreseen, but I guess necessary in the greater scheme of things. Um, they've usually been very polite and efficient. Again, just my experience. Your mileage may vary, so I've been happy from that standpoint. Would I recommend an EV for everyone? Candidly, no. I'm a big EV advocate. I think it's a very exciting technology. I think the driving experience is great for the most part. But the most critical factor in my mind is the availability of home or workplace charging. Basically, you can easily charge it at home or at work. If that's not an option, I candidly would not recommend one. Um, you'd probably be better off with a hybrid, like a Prius or RAV4 hybrid, something similar like that. Or if you want to kind of take a half step into the world of EVs, you get a plug-in hybrid where when you have the chance, you can plug in, drive more of your miles on full electric, and then have basically the engine to act as a range extender or to be able to continue your trip uninterrupted. Um, I know a lot of plug-in hybrid owners that have been very happy with their cars. Um, so that's always an option. Um, uh, Again, I would recommend if you are in a single family home or in like a multifamily situation, ideally you want level 2, which would be 240-volt AC charging access. That just makes such a huge difference in the ownership experience. That's what I personally recommend. I know that there are people out there that live in apartments and just all they do is like supercharge or DC fast charge their cars, and somehow they make it work. You can do that, but again, I would just strongly recommend that you have access to level 2 charging at your home or workplace on a regular, reliable basis to really have the optimal ownership experience. What's my favorite thing about owning an EV? Honestly, the smoothness and the torque. And I know people have different opinions on that. Some people say, "Oh, EVs are soulless; they don't have any character," and that's true to an extent. And that the driving experience among EVs is fairly similar, and that it's smooth, uninterrupted power. They're very quiet. Um, so the main difference will be in I guess, the intensity of that experience. So, uh, like on the lower end, like a Hyundai Kona EV versus a Tesla Model S Plaid. Um, the Plaid is very, very fast accelerating. It's over 1,000 horsepower. So obviously that's going to feel different than the Hyundai, which is I think around 200 horsepower. So obviously there's going to be a difference in that sensation, but the character of the power is very similar in the sense that it's very quiet and very linear. So that's going to be the main difference between um, the driving experience with EVs. So if you're one of these aficionados that really gets a thrill out of like um, a specific kind of exhaust note or torque curve or whatever, um, yeah, EVs are a little more standardized when it comes to that. You're not going to have that same variation of character in terms of the powertrain. Um, so again, that's just comes down to personal preference. What are my least favorite things about owning an EV? Honestly, they eat through tires. In my experience, much more quickly than a conventional ICE or internal combustion car. Um, my first set of tires, I had to replace at 16,000 miles, which was is kind of ridiculous because even on kind of more performance oriented ICE cars I've owned in the past, they've generally lasted at least 30,000 miles, and that's even with driving pretty aggressively. Um, I've since changed to higher what they call the UTQG grade, which is the tire wear rating of the tires. So the factory spec tires were 500 UTQG. From there, I stepped up to 700 Continentals, and then from there, the current set I have on there is 840, which is I don't even know what the maximum rating is, but that's pretty high. And that was a deliberate choice. I wanted tires that would hold up over the long run. I wouldn't have to replace them frequently. So even though that's quite a bit higher tread wear rating than the factory spec tires, and there is a little trade off in that with like ultimate grip, but not enough where I think it seriously degraded the driving experience. So I would recommend to go for a higher UTQG rating on your replacement tires over maybe the factory spec. Again, just personal preference and my personal recommendation. If you don't care about replacing tires more frequently, um, you might want to go for a grippier, more performance-oriented tire. But that's just my personal preference and personal recommendation. Um, Another thing I've haven't been thrilled about, but it's kind of the nature of the beast is there is just a certain amount of built-in battery degradation you're going to get over time. I got a SR Plus, Standard Range Plus in 2019. The factory EPA rating was a 240 mile max range. Um, Pretty soon after I bought it, it displayed the max range as 214 miles. And then from there, it kind of went down further. Now, there's a couple of different factors that play into that. I think on the range estimation, it does base that somewhat off driver history and behavior. And I do tend to drive a little bit more aggressively, admittedly. So that does have a bearing on that. And also just two, specifically the battery chemistry in mine, which is NMC, which is nickel, manganese, cobalt, which was a more common chemistry um, a few years ago. It's still relatively common, but for a lot of the more mainstream EV models, they've gone to LFP or lithium iron phosphate batteries, which have less degradation and a longer life cycle. But now my max range, 100% charge, is up to about 195 miles. So, um, it's just kind of a trade-off. It's a natural occurrence. There's nothing defective about the batteries. It's just over their lifetime, your maximum range will degrade a little bit. So that's something you got to factor in your daily driving habits and what your needs are. If I had to do it over, I probably would have paid a little more money and gotten a longer range model, just kind of factoring in that natural degradation over time. So it wouldn't have impacted me as much. And honestly, it doesn't impact me a lot. You just have to factor that into road trips, um, and just kind of know roughly what your state of charge is going to be when you get to your destination, what your charging options are at your destination, and your return trip. So again, something you have to plan for a little more with an EV than you do for a gas car, because as of right now and probably for the foreseeable future, there's going to be gas stations everywhere. EV chargers, at least where I live in California, fairly common, so I'm not too concerned about that, but it is something to think about. The biggest misperceptions I've heard people say about EVs that I've talked to that don't have personal experience with them is they think they're like glorified golf carts and they're slow. They're not slow. In most cases, an EV equivalent to an internal combustion model will be quicker. Will be faster accelerating, um, almost across the board. Um, mine mine goes 0 to 60, and mine's the base model, Model 3. It's 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds. It's plenty quick, unless you're just a total power fiend. And if you are, there's models like the Model S Plaid that do it in like 2.1 seconds. Um, but for daily driving, I found absolutely no lack of power, and just the immediate off the line throttle response and torque. It just gets out of the hole real quick and just moves. So EVs are not slow. I would definitely encourage you, if you haven't test driven one, just test drive it for the heck of it. just to get a feel for it and kind of dispel, whatever preconceptions or prejudices you might have against EVs. I really encourage you to, get your butt in a seat and experience one firsthand. So this is another one I hear a lot from friends and family. Elon Musk, it seems to just be a lightning rod for controversy. He does a lot of odd and kind of off-putting things that make people upset with him. I'm not going to be an apologist for anything he does. This is not about Elon Musk, his politics, what you might think of him, the things he does. I'm just talking about Tesla as a brand and as the owner and the ownership experience. Um, uh, you'll get different opinions about what is best, what is the best EV. I think objectively, when you add together the entire experience of purchase, ownership, maintenance, technological sophistication, charging network, factoring all those things together, Tesla is still the best EV on the market. I'm just going to say it. Um, there are other good and competitive models out there, um, even from established legacy automakers. Ford, Hyundai, I think makes some excellent EV models. You have Rivian if you're looking at a truck or SUV, Lucid if you want like uh, a premium luxury model. Um, they're all excellent models, but all together, I think Tesla still has the best overall EV ownership experience, factoring in all those different things I just mentioned. Um, but if you just can't stomach what Elon's doing, and you're just like that's like just a hard pass for you, I'd say your best options right now are probably the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Mustang Mach-E, Ford F-150 Lightning is it's a great kind of personal use truck. Um, I would say if you do a lot of towing and hauling and really like kind of commercial industrial stuff, it's probably maybe not the best choice for that. I'd still recommend a conventional powertrain for heavier duty truck applications. Just there's a variety of factors for that. I might get into it in a separate video and kind of explain why. Um, but yeah, I think those are some good options. I would also note starting in 2025, but going to 26 and beyond, basically the rest of the industry is going to going to adopt the Tesla port design, which is called NACS or J3400 now. So going forward, basically, effectively every EV sold in the U.S. is going to have the Tesla NACS port. Um, so that should make them compatible with superchargers. Um, in some cases, you may still have to download the Tesla app to enable kind of the handshake and the charging for that. Um, I think ultimately, industry wide, the desire is to go to a technology they call plug and charge, where you don't have to fiddle around with the apps or anything. It's literally like what it says, plug and charge, which Tesla's had for over a decade now. Initially on kind of a proprietary technology, but they've adopted the CCS protocol, which is kind of industry wide. But again, Tesla was literally 10 years ahead of everyone else on that, and that's a current advantage that they have that really nobody else on a widespread basis has. Um, but there are some excellent non-Tesla EVs out there to consider and look at. Finally, you may notice the apparel I'm wearing, the hat and the shirt. So I co-host a EV related podcast and blog with a friend. And we get super nerdy and really dive down on issues in the EV market, new models, news, controversies. We've had a lot of guest speakers and guests on the podcast that have shared in different aspects of the EV ecosystem. particularly the charging infrastructure, because that's a big issue and a big topic in the EV community right now. So if you're curious, you want to know more, you just kind of want our hot take on issues in the EV world, I would encourage you to check it out. It's just that as it's spelled here, thewattcar.com. Um, and you'll find blog posts, podcasts. We're on Apple, Spotify, all the major podcast platforms. You'll find us there. So if you're curious and want to know more, I hope you'll follow and subscribe, and get something out of it. Also, anything I haven't addressed in this video, about my ownership experience or things you're curious about EVs or topics you'd like to see for a future video, just post it in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer it, or just as a reply to your comment, or like I said, I'll do it in a future video post. But again, I'm just sharing my honest, unvarnished, um, non-sensationalistic experiences as a Tesla owner. Um, it's been a pretty enjoyable experience for me. Uh, I would I would get another Tesla. I would definitely get another EV of whatever brand. I think it's the future. Regardless of what Trump is doing or saying right now, um, past the second term, you're going to see a lot more of them on the road. I think you're going to see a lot more charging stations, and they're going to be less burdensome to own and live with. Um, Again, that's just my personal feelings. Um, so but again, they're not for everybody. Consider your situation in terms of your commute, your home and parking situation, um, and the convenience factor for that. That's probably the my single biggest piece of advice I would give to people is just to consider that, because I've known people that have bought one just kind of going into it kind of naively and just kind of very idealistically. The term we use on the podcast a lot is rainbows and unicorns. Just this very idealistic view of EV ownership, and the fact of the matter is, um, you do need to consider kind of the day to day living factors in terms of charging and ownership, for it to really be an enjoyable experience. So just consider that. But yeah, so I hope you found that informative. Again, I'm not here to sensationalize or just get a huge, following. I'm just here to give it to you straight. And so I hope you found that informative, and hope to see you in future videos. Take care.